This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is David Horgan, the chairman of Clontarf Energy, following news that the company have successfully raised $400,000 through a placing. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. David, how are things?
Great. We've had a very busy few months, and we've just tooled up with some cash to proceed into the negotiations phase with the Bolivian authorities and the European institutions. So very inspired by what's been happening. The whole industry is quite transformed. Like when we first looked at lithium many years ago, it was very difficult to get people galvanized about it. You know, talked to the automotive manufacturers and they sort of said, well, what's this got to do with us? We're not miners. We're not commodity traders. We just assemble cars. We get bits all over the world. And you had to explain to them that the industry was evolving. There were certain critical minerals, not just lithium, also cobalt and some rare earths. But now the situation's totally transformed, really for geopolitical reasons. You had the trade war between China and Japan 13 years ago. You had the American Inflation Reduction Act a couple of years ago. And now you have the European Critical Resource Minerals Act just last year. And we've seen a complete transformation. You no longer have to explain to anyone the importance of these commodities. And now the pressure is on to get offtake at the right quality level. So it's become a very interesting and dynamic field.
Okay. And what was the appetite like for this placing, David? And did any of the directors take part?
Well, I mean, the directors have been funding the company effectively since 2014. And this was an exclusive arrangement to CMC, who've been a supporter for many years. So we had to turn away offers of capital we got from an institution in New York and also our longstanding Aussie supporters.
Okay.
But we wanted to get done. And we didn't want to drag on to be distracted or, all the silly rumors go around the market. We just wanted to get the 400 grand in the bank and move on.
Okay. And it was raised pretty swiftly with lots of interest. Oh
yeah, I mean, obviously we had to go through the permitting with a nominated advisor and so on, but the actual deal was done on a handshake, a verbal handshake, and quickly confirmed through documentation.
Okay. Well, I mean, a big line from that RNS, and I know people have picked up on it, is your directors are reluctant to dilute at low share price in the challenging stock markets, but the potential prize is too rich to put in jeopardy. Now, we do know that the markets are a bit tough. I was talking to someone just earlier today who had to do a discounted placing, because the markets are not so favourable at the moment. But the line that you have in there, the potential prize is too rich to put in jeopardy. So, I mean, what are we talking here?
Yeah, well, the lithium market is extremely dynamic, and it's dynamic for a number of reasons. One is the user quality requirements are rising all the time. There was a time when 94% was considered pure lithium. Now, a minimum battery grade would be 98%, but people are really looking for 99 or 99.5%, and that requirement will continue to tighten, both in terms of the purity, but also the impurities, because certain impurities can be problematic. And that's why we've been putting so much effort in direct lithium extraction, a new technology that is even cleaner than the current producing technologies. And the other problem is that the supply at the moment really comes 80% from quite dirty sources, from hard rock mines in Western Australia and also in Southern Africa. And until this point, when you buy your BYD or your BMW or your Tesla, these products are marketed as clean EVs. But of course, many of the commodities that are used in their manufacture are either used in great volumes and therefore have quite a big environmental impact, or they're processed in quite a dirty way, very often in China in coal-fired power stations. And I think over the coming few years, you're going to see a new focus on not just clean raw material of high purity, but cleanly produced raw material, because otherwise it's just hypocritical. How can you virtue signal it, to all the nice people in your posh club in London, if people realize that maybe the lithium in your Tesla was manufactured in a dirty process by arguably slave labor in Xinjiang? I'm not saying that they are, but people have suddenly become aware of this. And the great advantage of Bolivian lithium is that the work has already been done by Mother Nature. So this is a highly concentrated brines in a big salt pan, done by Mother Nature over tens of thousands of years. The grade is quite good. Like in the main salt lake, you've got 500 milligrams per liter, so it's already quite a rich source. And the issue up to now has been the ability to increase production at the requisite purity, which is improving all the time in terms of specification. And for that reason, we've been investing hugely in direct lithium extraction technology. And just in this last couple of years, we've made some breakthroughs at lab level and small micro plant level. And our joint venture partner is now assembling this plant in a secret location for full production testing. We've already got big samples from the Bolivian authorities. I think we're one of the few companies that's done that. And after signature of this agreement today, we expect to go to very large quantities, maybe 10 or 20 tons per salt lake. And that will enable us to prove the ability to produce at industrial scale. And that will open the route for major production from Bolivia of brines of this clean lithium. So this is the reason why the EU Commission has suddenly galvanized about this subject, and the reason why the automotive manufacturers that have previously been coy have now suddenly bought onto the need to secure this offtake.
So you talk there a lot about clean lithium. That is important. And it is also where it's processed as well, also very important, particularly to Western governments. And you've explained there why, or that the brines are already fairly clean. So I mean, how is this playing into the? Maybe we're talking too longer term here, but when we're thinking about actually commercializing this product here out of the ground, can it be extracted commercially, and where's it going to go? Who's your customer going to be, and what any discussions that you're having around that at the moment?
Yes, I mean we've obviously been in contact with some of the major battery manufacturers, including one of the biggest in the world, which is actually a Chinese group. We previously, in another company, were joint ventured with Itochu, which is the major trader of oil and energy minerals in the Pacific. So we're very familiar with the Asian market, which dominates high-grade batteries. It was basically Sony in Japan that developed this sector. 80% of the demand goes into EVs, lithium-ion batteries for EVs, though the fastest growing segments are actually the high-tech, space-age defense sectors, and also your smartphone and your laptop. So basically, it's 80% EVs, which has been growing rapidly, about 12% computer smartphones, and the balance of the high-tech applications. So we've been monitoring these technologies and in discussions in Singapore and in Latin America and elsewhere. And there's enormous interest in the ability to up the purity levels and also the volume, because the big constraint is volume at the moment. And funny enough, the people who cottoned on first to the issue about cleanliness was the Australians. And the reason is that they are the people who've boosted their output very fast in the last 10 years and plan to over the next few years, but they're very aware of how dirty it is. So they're thinking ahead. The Aussies are smarter than the rest of us. They're thinking ahead to the environmentalist backlash. Already you can see with ESG, there's a backlash against greenwashing, which is a good thing. It's good that people are asking searching questions and requiring independent audits and not being conned, because there's so much bad practice in the whole ESG world. So they're anticipating the problem, I think, before Europeans are. And we pointed this out to the European institutions, and they can see the value of it too. Right now, the focus is on offtake, but as soon as there's adequate supplies of lithium, the focus will shift to clean lithium. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve.
Okay. And another thing from the RNS that I noticed was you talk about this call to bids, and that the funding will bolster the position on the call to bids to show financial capacity. Could you explain that a little bit more, what call to bids means and how the funding really plays into that?
Yes. The word is convocatorio in Spanish, which is a much more formal process than it sounds in English, but it's literally a call to bids. And it's basically how they can do a bid round under the current legislation that they have, which, quite rightly, they take the law very seriously, although they have been looking at upgrading and improving the law. And we've always taken the view that we have to operate within the existing law and the existing constitution. And that's one of the points that we persuaded, I think, the Europeans, because when we started talking to them, they were moaning about, the Bolivians changing the laws. And, we said, well, what would you say if the Bolivians came to you and wanted you to change your law or the Treaty of Rome or whatever? So now there's a broad acceptance. They accept direct lithium extraction is not a conventional mining industry, which they might have been wary about funding. It's a water purification or chemical processing, which is absolutely within their funding mechanisms, which they broadly call the Global Gateway, which is basically a way of funding infrastructure and development in such a way as to fuel the green transition and high-tech industries. Very similar to what the Americans are doing with the Inflation Reduction Act. In Britain, it's slightly different because a lot of the focus in Britain, and we've also participated in the British mission to Bolivia, the British focus seems mainly, we see, focused on defense industries, which is fine, whereas the Europeans are more aware of the commercial, the automotive industries, computers, and so on, quite apart from defense. So everyone has a slightly different focus. And basically, what we propose to do is to maximize the production of ever-increasing purities of lithium in the output with a view to selling that offtake to battery manufacturers. Now, the current industry is focused in Asia, principally in China and Japan. What the Europeans and the Americans ideally want is to control the entire production chain, but at the moment, they don't have several links in the chain sorted out. But we have solutions to deal with this problem. We've done this before in petroleum industries where, let's say you're in a small country like Ireland, you don't have refining capacity for the oil. What you do is you can send the oil to Scotland or to Rotterdam, and you give them 100,000 barrels and they give you back 90,000 barrels of the products that you want. So there are these structures in place. Whether it will satisfy all, the Trumps and the Ursula von der Leyens about strategic independence from China, that remains to be ironed out. But we commercially can solve the problems as long as we're given the financing and other tools to get that result.
Okay. So you're looking almost to be part of the whole supply chain?
Well, we already have very close relations with Japanese players going back many years, going back 25 years. We were working together in Iraq for many years. And we quite good relations with the major battery manufacturer in China because our chief lithium geologist worked for them for many years, helped develop a early stage mine for them in Argentina. So we've a good understanding of where people are coming from, and they have quite different perspectives. Some have commercial parameters principally. Others have, like the Americans or the Europeans, mainly have geopolitical concerns, which are equally important. And what they really want is offtake of the quality required. Whereas obviously as a commercial entity, what we want to do is make money. And what the Bolivians want to do is grow their industry because they've been a bit slow off the mark. I mean, we have been looking at Bolivian lithium, in my case, since about 1990, when it had much lower value than today, when the market was much more basic than it is today. And yet they haven't really exported significant quantities yet. The volumes that they have sold to companies like the Russian state company, they basically twisted their arm to get those volumes away, but they were below battery grade. So they realize now that they need access to market, they need access to modern technology. The state cannot control 100% of an industry. And this has been a great leap forward. And part of the reason why they've made this Damascus conversion is that they've hired some top people in both the lithium company and also the ministry who have experience of working for international companies in the oil and gas and other industries. So these are people who are familiar with the languages, maybe not as familiar with the market as we've become over the last 25 years, but they now understand how finance works, that for finance to work, it has to work for everyone. You can't just expect someone to come in, develop a technology, develop a market without a risk-adjusted rate of return. Equally, the Europeans realize that we cannot do what was done in times past, where you enter a country like, the Silver Mountain and Potosi, and the Spanish Empire gets built with the conquistadors making fortunes without reinvesting some of that value out of the local community. And our model, based on 30 years experience in Bolivia, has been to work with the local people, hire local people where possible, train them up. And if we have to send them to Japan or to Germany to get trained up, that's what we'll do, whereby we have partners. We don't want employees anymore. We want bosses. We want partners, and we all want to get rich together.
Okay, well, that's a good line to finish on. But I mean, having said everything that we've covered today, what does this mean really for shareholders and building value in the company? What have you got to do as a company to see some revenues coming through?
Well, we have to become the first companies, hopefully, to sign contracts. At the moment, there are three what they call convenios. We have to use the Spanish term, which means it's almost the same as memorandum of understanding with two Chinese and one Russian companies. But basically, they're not legally enforceable. They are not monopolies or exclusive. And now, just recently, at the last Brussels meeting we had a month ago, the Bolivian government has committed itself to negotiating and signing contracts, hopefully by the 6th of August, which is the National Day. So what we need to do is sign a contract that will enable us, hopefully even this year or as soon as we can, to deploy one or more pilot plants to one or more salt lakes so we can start producing commercial grade and start exporting it and making money for everyone.
Okay. Right. Okay. Excellent. So hopefully getting a contract by about August to get some pilot plants going and producing the grade. Well, thank you very much, David Horgan, the chairman of Clontarf Energy, for your time today.
Thank you again.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.